Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Town of Three Rivers January 20th special COC budget meeting. First on our agenda is a call to order and a land acknowledgement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that the land upon which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory, Epuic, Prince Edward Island. Mi'kmaqi is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this land for over 12,000 years, past, present, and future. So I'll ask for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Monroe and second by Councillor McFarland. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next is anybody on a conflict of interest in any of the items on tonight's agenda? Okay, no conflict of interest. So we'll move along and I'll pass it over to,
No, you can just say that no one registered for it.
yeah, okay. Okay, we didn't have anybody registered to speak tonight, so we'll,
I phoned and left a message and an email. I phoned the office and she sent me to, I think it was Joan's email, and I left a message there. I didn't talk to her in person. I guess that's you.
So.
Okay, I missed that.
so is she, yep, okay, go ahead, Carla. Sorry about that.
Close that laptop, Carl.
Pardon?
I'll move that laptop out of your way.
Oh, it's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm speaking tonight partly just, I wanted to see how the process worked. And because this is the first time I've been here since you were meant to register ahead of time. So I see that there was a step missing in what I did today, or however that went.
So did you do it today, Carl?
No, I did it Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, Carla. We'll check in and see what happened, but you might have been there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't hear back, but I didn't worry
Yeah.
about it.
No, that's probably on us.
Okay. So I guess the hearing back is, and really that was the biggest thing on my mind, was just checking this out. My husband and I, we live, on the other side of the bank, so we've been watching buildings being built. And there's a building right across from us that we've been wondering, is it a house, is it an apartment? So right along Riverside Drive.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been looking at it and admiring it and thinking that it actually fits in with the look that we think is the right look for Montague. I don't know still whether it's a large house or if it's going to be, apartments or some kind of duplex thing. But we think it's lovely and totally appropriate and fits in. And, I guess it's the people who are building it who did that, but it'd be nice to maintain that kind of thing. And so I said, I'm going to call council and put my name on the list and just say that here's a building I approve of. That's it.
Okay. Carla, we can find out if that's a single-family dwelling or I'm not sure, duplex or something. I know the one you mean on Riverside Drive, yeah.
Yeah, from the front, it looks like it has a garage. It could be a single family. From our side, it has 3 distinct floors, and it's a very luxurious. If it is a single family, but it could be, multi-level. It fits in with other buildings along the front there.
Can anybody answer Carla tonight, or can we, pardon? We can get back to her, okay. Okay. I'll leave it in staff's hand. So number 5 is John's going to do a presentation, so I'll give him the floor.
Not sure I have to wait those. Oh, here we go. Thanks, Your Worship. So I have a bit of a slide deck to go through just to give you an update on some of the work staff has been doing to prepare us for our budget discussion. So tonight is around the operating budget only. We won't talk about capital tonight. And at the end, there's a discussion. And again, the discussion is among council members, given that the public will have their opportunity to come and present to us on the 3rd of February. And that's been advertised. And we also have written submissions coming in. So I think the best thing for me to do is go work through the deck. And then if there's any questions, we'll entertain them at the end. And then any of the staff can jump in on anything that I may not. No, that's good. So some of our starting assumptions on the revenue side of things, we're predicting to date revenue of $4.28 million in our operating account. That's an increase of $167,000 over current year. And where we're seeing that increase is in extra $86,000 in property taxes. That includes, we had a readjustment on taxes in last year, and that includes that, but it also includes a cent increase for the unincorporated areas and on the non-commercial, and 0.46 increase for commercial. And again, that's part of the MOS as we're in year 8, and that's an increasing scale. We are seeing an increase of $18,000 in fire dues that will be coming in. Again, that's an in and out. So as they come in, they go out, and then that's recognizing the increase that Cardigan put in. We haven't had a request for an increase from the fire departments for this year. We are seeing also an increase in interest income at $15,000, and we're also seeing an increase in planning revenue of 15. That doesn't add to 167, but there are some other drips and drabs that I didn't feel it was important to recognize. On the expense side of things, we did plug in salary increases of 2%, given that the cost of living adjustment for the end of 2024 is 1.8, and Bank of Canada is predicting somewhere between 2 and 3% cost of living increase for 2025. So that 2% increase should keep us on track. We do have a full complement of staff right now. We expect that. From our end as a staffing, we haven't requested any additional staff. If you recall, last year we asked for a planning and development clerk. The other thing we've done, and I'll go through them in a few minutes, is overall expenses. We're seeing an increase of about 9.56. We went through every line, looked at where we're at currently and where we can anticipate increases. We started out with a 4%, but in some cases we're at a flat, but there's some other areas that we're seeing an increase in. This slide indicates where our sources of revenue come from in the town. 55% of what we bring in is property taxes, 18% is fire dues, 12% is a property tax credit. We get 2% from planning and development revenue, and another 13% that we call other revenue. And the things that I have lumped in other revenue is a property tax offset, grant in lieu that we get from the province, equalization, any fines that we bring in, income from the AA Gardens in Georgetown, any operational government transfers, and interest revenue. And when we look at our expenses by division, we're fairly even for the most part. And I forgot to put the percentages in there, but you can see from the pie chart that protective services, maintenance and infrastructure, administration are our big buckets, followed by community services, planning, and town-owned facilities. And then we have a small portion of it that is financial and corporate services. So getting down into the nitty-gritty, and I hope folks can see this, if we look at the operating revenue from 2025, we had budgeted $4.12 million, and we're budgeting $4.287 as a starting point, again, with input from council. Property taxes, again, we're seeing $2.2 million going up to 2.3. Grant and lieu remaining the same. A little bit of an increase in hall rental income, an increase in fire dues to 758,000, and again, that will be fully expensed to the fire departments. An operating transfer going from 92,000 to 100. Property tax credit going from 497,000 to 508. Fines is staying the same at 25,000. Income from the AA Gardens staying again at 3,000. Operational government transfers remaining the same at 95,000. Property tax offset, we see a reduction in that from 176, 144, and I believe that's from the MOS. Other revenue going from 88,000 to 136. Planning and development revenue from 85,000 to 100, and interest revenue increasing by 15,000 to 25. On the operating expenses, we're seeing protective services going from 958 to 993. That's where we capture our fire dues, and that's where your biggest increase in that section is. On maintenance and infrastructure services, we're going from predicting 919,000 to 1,000 or 1,085,000. What we're seeing there is an increase in costs for building maintenance and salary increases for seasonal and full-time staff. On the planning services, basically seeing the same, 388,000. Again, last year we had a $25,000 allotment for the housing study. That's not in there, so we're actually seeing a little bit of an increase, but pulling out that housing study brings us back to where we are. On the financial and corporate services, we're seeing a reduction there of 54,000 down to 51. Town-owned facilities, 318,000 to 355. Again, that's an increase due to increases in costs for some of the facilities that we own and operate. I think I skipped over administrative services, 887,000 to 1,090,000. What we're seeing there is an increase in expenses we did add some more money for mayor and council expenses based on the increase in population in the town. We are seeing an increase in council remuneration and IT, and then salary increases are captured in that. And a community services, 595,000 to 552. So for a budgeted amount to date of 4.5 million. And if you do a summary, we have operating revenue of 4.2, operating expenses of 4.5. So we would predict a deficit of 229,000. However, we have a previous year's cash surplus that we're predicting of about 477,000 that we would bring forward from the current fiscal year to have a surplus of $247,000. And again, staff went through the current year line by line and really did I think, pretty bang-up job in predicting. We factored in their salaries and other things. A lot of the years, because we're into the last quarter, we have a pretty good handle on where we're going to be. So some of the things to think about, with no changes to revenue or expenses, we have a deficit of 229,000. Again, that does not include the current year surplus. The projected surplus carried forward is 477,000. We have no vacant positions, and we have no requests for additional staff from at least from the management side of things. On the community grants, we do have a commitment of $15,000 that's committed to TCAP, and that's the last year of a 3-year commitment. We do have requests of 41,000 from the Three Rivers Festivals and 63,000 in other requests that we will consider at another meeting, and we'll provide council with some background to those requests from community groups and others. On the facility requests, we have a placeholder of $355,000. 231,000 of that is Town of Three Rivers expense costs, 36,000 in emergency funding, and another 88,000 in facility upgrades. So, our discussion tonight, again, sticking to the operating budget, is do we to remain with current services or increase services? Do we foresee a change in taxation? And then at some point, we'll want to have a capital discussion with council. We need to think about a meeting date, and then we'll get your priorities for capital items. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. I don't know if you have any questions. Myself and staff can work our way through them.
As always, on the provincial grant, we gotta talk with the province, and something's gotta be done about that. 24 years I've been in this chair, and it has never changed. We've, former Montague Council went on at least 3 occasions to talk to Minister of Finance, and all kinds of gobbledygook. But even with the assessment, the changes, the new building, $1 million even to the emergency room has never changed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going on with other municipalities, but that's got to change. And it's certainly got to increase, and we should be being paid back retroactively for it.
From our staff position, until we get a sense of direction from the province that that's going to change, or it's hard for us to plug anything in other than. But I see what you're saying.
No, and there's always talks with municipalities, Federation of Municipalities, about revenue sharing, etc. But that's got to be talked about. Just what would 1 cent on residential and 1 cent on commercial get us, just for brown?
Last year we looked at it, and a penny was, unless you have new numbers, it was 88,000 last year. If you
for
added
residential?
a penny,
88
88,000 if you added a penny across the board
for
on.
residential. And what about commercial?
I don't recall what it was on.
Don't know if we looked at commercial.
Yeah, I don't think we looked at commercial last year.
It wouldn't be anywhere near. Oh, it might be higher.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I would only be guessing.
Can you shoot me that sometime? All right. Just keep in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I just, I have some questions on a couple of slides back.
Sure,
okay?
I can drop back.
Just because I'm not, like, there was one there, a grant in lieu, 20,000, what is that?
That was what John was just talking about.
Oh, okay.
And it's,
And that's all we get?
yeah,
That's one from the hospital.
Supposed to be to offset the
property,
tax
yeah.
on the hospital. I mean, the assessment on that is good.
So I remember you talking about this last year.
Oh yeah,
I know, but,
it's a thorn in my side from the province.
well, then, what could we do about it? Like, what action could we take? Is that a role that we would put on you, Madam?
Well, it'd have to be, it's a political discussion between the political leadership with the town and the political leadership with the province. And certainly staff would support
Yeah.
whatever council.
Could we do that? Sure. Your worship?
I understand, like, we don't, there's a fisheries building in Montague and a number of other buildings around, but, so there's no municipal tax coming in from any of those government buildings. So I thought it was more than just the hospital. I thought it was an accumulation of all of what we got for all the buildings that, I guess, used to be Montague, that were in Three Rivers, that were government owned. That's what I always thought it was for, but you go further back than I do.
I was always told it was
Yeah.
assessment for
Yeah.
the hospital.
John, can you put your microphone on?
Yeah.
There you go. I was always told that it was
Yeah,
the assessment,
could be.
but you're right, there's some 30% of the former town of Montague that is government owned. So it's,
So we can add that to the list to look into. I know you are in discussions with the province with revenue sharing at this time. I don't know, I don't have a feeling on how that's going, or I just heard, in my meeting in town last week that they didn't anticipate it to be done by the end of March.
That would be a separate discussion than the
Yeah, it
revenue
would be
sharing.
separate, yeah. John?
Your Worship, could we highlight why we have a surplus this past current fiscal year?
basically, we're over budget on revenue. A lot of it is based on planning, I think, and a good portion of that is the fees that we receive from the tech park in Georgetown. So we're over budget on revenue, and we certainly under expensed in a number of areas on the expense side of things. And that, if you look, I think last year we were predicting about a $450,000 surplus. We're predicting 477 for this current year.
Martina?
Another question on another slide there, community services. It went down for next year? Budget, community services? It's down 40,000 instead of up?
Yeah. I'll look to staff to get the details. I don't have the document in front of me.
So, promotion and development, last year we budgeted 50, we didn't use that, so we lowered that by 29,200 this year. Turn on my mic. Grants and donation, we budgeted 35,013 last year. This year it only came in at that 15 is what we, for the TCAP, that's all we'll discuss the others at a later date. And that lowered it by 20,000. And the small halls and recreational facilities, we budgeted a little bit higher. I think it's about 10,000 last year, and we didn't use it, so this year we lowered it. So it was just a little bit over budgeted last year and lowering some of the expenses this year.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so that 60-some thousand of the extra grants requested is not included in that community services yet, because that's something council will have to decide. So that's gonna be a big chunk of why there's a difference there. So if council decides to approve the whole 63,000, well, it's gonna increase based upon the approval. Yeah.
Is the 41,000 that included in the 63,000 that the festivals are asking for?
No, it's not. It's in a different line. It is under promotions, I believe, is where we put that.
But I think that 41,000 is captured in this.
In the community services, it would be, because that's community services, a total of all community services within our budget. But out of that 63,000, that's not included, that's not 41,000 that the festivals have requested.
Okay, so that's over and above that.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I have another question. I'm just curious, we just approved a new website to be built. Where is that built into?
That's a current year IT expenditure.
Okay.
So we approved that under the current year.
Oh, that's this year?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, out of our surplus.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay,
So that's been factored into the surplus.
Yeah.
And again, it's $11,000. It's not a huge.
Yeah.
It's 16 in total, but that includes maintenance costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's current year's expenses.
okay. Anybody else? John looks like he's thinking over there.
Do we have any questions on this side? Go ahead, Martina, yeah.
I just have one last thing. So I remember we projected our surplus last year with the new taxation that we have. And so we seem to be pretty accurate in it. So when we suggest that we are $250,000 shortfall, then that would be pretty accurate in terms of where we are.
I would think so. Like I said, what we did this year was we went through every line as a staff and kind of predicted where we're going to end the year. And in some cases, we added a percentage to that. So, we did predict a small decrease last year, and we're actually coming in again at a surplus.
Surplus.
You know, I think we're very careful with our spending. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we have enough money to do what we need to do. So there's always a little bit of wiggle room throughout the year. Sometimes you have, you know, last year we predicted a salary for a planning and development clerk, but we didn't hire that person until partway into the year
Right.
because it just takes a bit of time. So there's savings that way. But there were certain things that we went over budget on, a little bit on facility maintenance and stuff like that. So if everything came true that we were predicting and we spent every cent we had, we would look at about a $229,000 deficit for next year. Again, that being offset by the $477,000 that we're expecting to carry forward.
Anybody else? John, go ahead.
Planning services is status quo. In fact, it's just under a little bit. With all the development that's going on, we don't anticipate any other needs. Should we not put a little more in there somewhere?
We did show an increase in the revenue side of things with the planning. And so what you're looking at there is on the expense side of things. So we are seeing an increase in the revenue. We're calling it status quo on the expenses, mostly because we pulled out $25,000 that we had put in there for last year that was for the housing study. And so you pull that out, so we're actually increasing the expenses by $25,000 for the current year, or for the upcoming year.
So I'm looking at maintenance and infrastructure services there, so it's up, predicted to be up by 100,000.
Yeah.
Right? I know we spent a lot of money on, you know, the playhouse, and we divested, you know, the station and
But
Lorne
we
Valley.
still own the station, but we have
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
tenant in there.
At least.
We did divest,
Yeah.
we are in the process of divesting Brudenell Schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse.
Now that,
When and where will that money go? How does that
that'll come
That's-
back in as revenue,
revenue?
Yeah.
Just okay.
and it'll be revenue for the current year.
So I'm just curious, why do you think it's going to be 100,000 over last year?
I'll let,
Is it just, yeah.
or perhaps Dorothy can, or somebody can speak to the specifics on the.
I think I think the costs of streetlights and just gas, those kinds of things, each year, we're putting in anticipation. And really, that's what it boils down to, just those basic things. There really isn't any large increases in that department.
And we are seeing some increase in salaries again, and for both part-time and, so that's where a lot of our part-time staff are captured.
Okay.
Our summer staff there too.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
We actually did add a staff member partway through this year, which will be captured next year as a full year salary. So that would make a big impact too. Plus, the minimum wage went up
Right.
last year too, which would also reflect this year.
Yeah, so we added a utility operator
Right, right.
this year.
Yep.
Just to clarify, the money from the sale of the Brudenell School, so that's part of the surplus for this year that you're predicting? Okay.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Okay. So, there will be, as John said, and as he reported in his last CAO report, there is public budget consultations. Okay, I'll just gonna read this. Oral presentations may be made to council at public meeting on February 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the town hall. So just don't forget to register for, if anybody would like to speak at those consultations. I think,
So what I can do after the meeting is I'll share this deck with council. And then as you know, you may need to marinate on it a bit. And then as we come back over the next few meetings, I guess we're not expecting anyone to set anything in stone here tonight. Again, this was an opening discussion that staff put together based on the best information we could come up with. If any of you feel, or if you feel at a point that we're, that we need to cut somewhere or increase another area or have some discussion on that, that's certainly where we're at. But right now, this is kind of our opening piece to allow council to give some thought to where you want to go over the next few weeks, because we do have until March to set our overall budget.
And we still have to do our capital budget.
And we still have to do our
Yeah.
capital budget, so give some thought to, if you have some capital requests, send them in to me, or we'll be doing a round table with council too on what your priorities are.
It would be nice for staff if you could get them in before, if you have some priorities you'd like to see in the,
And if you can get them
Yeah.
into us, as your worship says, if you get them into us, perhaps we can do some homework
Yes.
on the costs and
Yeah.
before we.
yeah, that was my idea of getting them in a little bit earlier. Go ahead, Martina.
Well, I've been talking to a few people, and I know John has too, so I thought you were going to say something, but he didn't. But, about this community being open for, not necessarily business, but open for residents, right? And we have a lot of growth going on, but is there any other community that does like a tax incentive for someone to move here, to give them a tax break, to make it feel like we're open for you to move here instead of Stratford? Come to Three Rivers, build and grow your family and here. Like, I like the idea of it. It's been presented to me a couple times. You, John, you talked to the same gentleman that was mentioning it to me different times, and sending that message that Three Rivers, I mean, we're big. I'm not talking Montague. I'm talking Montague, Georgetown, Cardigan, and surrounding area. Like, why would anyone come here, right? What could we do publicly to bring people to this area? Perhaps many would say, well, we don't want more homes. But I think, to grow this region and to bring doctors and police officers and people like that to build here as opposed to Stratford, how can we campaign and send that message to the public? And is this a time where we would develop a little bit of a program around that?
It would have to be included in our operating budget.
Like it would be like a tax incentive, build your home and be tax-free for 3 years or something like that, to send the message out there that we want you to live and work here. All the school teachers and professionals that come out of Stratford. Could we ever do something like that?
I think first thing you have to decide how much money you have to spend to put it. If you wanted to do an incentive, and I will tell you, our taxes are significantly less here in Three Rivers than they are in Stratford, so that alone provides
That's
an
right.
incentive.
Yeah.
But
Just a good marketing tool, you know?
But if council decided to do that, then you have to figure out, okay, how much of your budget line, is it $100,000, is it $200,000, what's the annual cost of it, and then figure out from there.
I don't think it would be that much money in the great scheme of things, as much as it would be a really good PR incentive and I might be alone in this thinking.
I'm sorry. John, you were first, go ahead.
Nope, thank you, Your Worship. That's been thought of before, but are we allowed to do that with residential taxation? Residential?
I'm not sure.
We've done it with, and we currently have that in with commercial. There's a taxation building. But can you do it for residential?
We do have two tax incentives currently.
We currently have an affordable housing tax incentive program, as well as the other one is titled Municipal Revitalization Tax Incentive Program. The municipal revitalization one is, you're right, is commercial. And there's some provisions around that, and the point of it was to revitalize Main Street.
Yeah.
It's that one.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the Affordable Housing Tax Incentive Program, and it's basically to try to incentivize affordable housing to be created or developed in Three Rivers. So those are the two current programs that we have.
But
And those
that's-
are on our website if you want to just review them. Yep.
But that's for apartment buildings and whatnot. You're talking about residential homes though. Yeah. I don't know if we can do that. We can certainly look into it. But then again, you know.
Yeah, we can certainly look into it.
Yeah, because we discussed this before, and I always thought that you weren't allowed to do, I know you can't do rebates on like incentivization through sewer and water. I know Iraq won't allow that. But if the province will ease up on that type of thing, I mean, budget for 50 homes and see where you get. It's a great idea, for sure.
Go ahead, John.
So there are jurisdictions that are on Prince Edward Island that are doing it, and they're incentivizing to the point whereby it's based on the value of the home. So $200,000 home would give you a municipal tax break for two-year period. A $300,000 home with 4-year period, $500,000 home with 5-year period, and so on. So there are jurisdictions that do it, and it's to incentivize people to build within our area. I don't know necessarily. I think it's a broader discussion that has to happen in terms of, are we looking to incentivize in terms of our urban areas like Montague, Cardigan, Georgetown, or are we looking outside of that scope? I mean, like Three Rivers is a huge area. I don't know. Like, I don't know that can be some. I think we have to discuss it further in terms of what it looks like, because you're right. I mean, like, we've got various projects that are going on in Three Rivers, and I would love to see people build their homes within our jurisdiction so that they have an incentive in order to do that. And granted, we would bear the cost of that for 3 years or whatever, but over the course of time, we would reap the rewards of that as well if we have a group or a larger number of people that are deciding that they're building within our town. So those are things that I think we have to discuss further.
The other way you could do it is set a budget, and once the budget's gone, then, for the year, then it would roll over to the next year. It'd be another way of trying to predict it. It'd be a hard thing to predict how much it would cost. That's,
One way or the other, you're gonna have to set a budget
yeah,
line.
you're gonna have to have a
Yeah,
budget for it,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Anybody else? No? Are we all done?
In terms of process going forward, the 3rd of February will be a special meeting where we will request for comments from the public. And we'll also be doing work on capital down the road. And we'll revisit this budget to get further input from council. I'll send this deck out following the meeting, and you can marinate on it.
So, Your Worship, just
Yes,
one last
go
thing.
ahead.
So, John, do you want us to write up a little thing as to what it is that we would like?
Yeah, if you
The
have
envision of
if you have a
that?
comment on capital or the operating budget,
Yeah.
forward
Okay.
it to us, and we'll incorporate it, bring it back, because at the end of the day, it's gotta
Right.
be
Because
passed by the entire group.
there are things that we can do in terms of looking at the number of new housing starts that we have, budgeting in terms of what those houses sizes are and how much money is coming in from taxes. And that gives us a rough idea as to how much this is going to cost, roughly.
John, do you have any information on the places that do it now, on the communities? O'Leary, okay. Okay, maybe staff could have a look. Go ahead.
Just so council is aware, so this year we closed out, or I should say as of December 31st, we had 248 development applications that were processed. And that's various applications. It's not necessarily all single-family homes, but that was up from 195 the previous year. So we don't have any shortage of development, but it's all various types of development, just to make you aware.
Okay, thanks for that information, Danielle. Anne, I believe
Yeah, I just have a question about the incentive for the affordable housing. Do we have people taking advantage of that at the moment?
I don't have anybody, the only one, I do have some people taking advantage of the other incentive, but the affordable housing one, I don't believe there's anybody in the queue at the moment that we do a rebate on. I believe they're all under the revitalization one.
Okay. I'd be interested in seeing us do something to encourage people to build larger rental units. So that's something that I'm going to bring forward.
Thank you, Worship. When you had mentioned to bring your wants, requests, asks for the capital side, do you mean in a request for motion form or just to this meeting?
No, just your ideas,
On the budget, itself, budget lines, okay.
yeah, just your ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Microphone's up. Yeah, just ideas, if you could have them, and if they could, it's kind of hard if we don't get them, if they don't get them ahead of time, and then staff could do just preliminary work and say, this is how much this would cost you, and then it's nice to figure out if you want to spend that much money, or, yeah.
And we'll also do a review on our current capital budget because a number of items that are on there have been completed and finished up. So what we'll do when we discuss our capital is talk about our current capital budget, what's been completed, what's still remaining, and there may be things that fall off, and then what additions we can do, and then again, what year we anticipate them being acted on.
Yeah, we do have a number of things that have been on there for some time.
Yeah, and like I say, a lot of them have been completed this year, if you look at,
Can you include that in your slides when you send this up?
Okay. Is that it? Okay, if nobody has any other questions, motion for adjournment. Moved by Councilor Monroe, second by Councilor McFarland. Okay. Okay. Thank you.